All right, you guys, bear with me on the video quality for this. I'm doing my best, but I want you to see me work out these problems. So we're going to be working on box and whisker plots. It's a lot of finding the median of data. Make sure you pause the video here and copy this down. This is a 5-number summary. We find a 5-number summary by first finding the median. Remember, median is the middle of a set of data. Then we look at the bottom half of that data and find the middle of that. So another median, that's our Q1. And then we look at the top half of our data, find the median of that, and that's Q3. And then our minimum is the lowest number, and our maximum is the highest value. So each of these represents 25% of our data, which is why we call these quartiles, quarters. So make sure you've paused that and copied that in your notes, as well as the following vocabulary. Interquartile range is what we get when we subtract the third quartile and the first quartile. And we use those quartiles to create a box and whisker plot. So here's our median, Q1, Q3, minimum, maximum. And so you can see we've broken this up into 25%, 25%, 25%, and 25%. They will not always be equal. Sometimes you're going to find a really long whisker. Sometimes the whisker might not be very long at all, but a quarter of your data falls in that range. We're going to do some problems together. The first is asking us to find a 5-number summary of the following data sets. So the first thing we want to do is find the median. Okay, so we're looking for the median, the middle. So I'm going to work my way in, and I find that my median is going to be between 20 and 24, which means I'm going to have to find the middle of those two numbers. And if you recall from your previous lesson, that means we have to add 20 plus 24 and then divide it by 2. So we end up with 44 divided by 2, which is 22. That is our median, okay? So my median is 22. Now we're going to look at the bottom half of our data and find the median of that. So the middle of that, we have 4 numbers, 12, 14, 19, 20. My middle is going to be between 14 and 19. We call this Q1. Again, we've got 2 numbers here, so I have to add 14 plus 19 and divide that by 2. So we're going to get, what is this, 33 divided by 2, which is 16 and a half. That is our Q1. So we have 16 and a half here. Now we're going to look at our upper values and find the median here. Again, the middle, so I can work my way in. That's going to be in between the 24 and the 28. This is going to be Q2. So some of you might look at this and say, oh, I know in between 24 and 28, the middle of those two is 26, and you would be correct. Mathematically, we can prove that. 24 plus 28, and then divide that by 2. So this is going to give us 52 divided by 2, which is 26. That is our Q3. Oh, I'm sorry, I labeled that wrong. Q3. Q2 is actually your median. So Q3 is 26. We know our minimum and our maximum. They're right here. The minimum is 12. The max is 30. So my 5-number summary are these right here, and we would list it like this. 12 is the minimum. Q1 is 16 and a half. We do a little wavy line there. Our median is 22. Wavy line. Q3 is 26. Wavy line, and our max is 30. Now, how do we find a box and whisker plot? Well, we're going to take these numbers and create a number line. And we've got, let's see, between 12 and 30 here. So I'm going to do 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. We are going to put a dot on our minimum. So our minimum was 12, 10, 11, 12. I'm going to put a dot here. I'm going to put a dot on the maximum, which was 30. And I'm going to put lines for each of these values. So my median was 22. There's a line here. Q1 was 16 and a half. So let's see here. 19, 18, 17, 16 and a half is going to be right around there. And then Q3 was at 26. So 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And here is my box. So I'm going to connect these and make a box. And then I'm going to draw whisker out, whisker out. So here's our median. Here is Q1, Q3, minimum, maximum. This is a box and whisker plot. Now the other thing they might ask us to do is find the interquartile range. And that's to find the difference in these two quartiles. To do that, we take Q3 and subtract Q1. So our Q3 value we know is 26. Q1 is 16 and a half. And so I really probably shouldn't do my subtraction that way. Let me just realign this, adding a magic 0. We've got a lot of regrouping to do here. This would be 5 and 10. Line up those decimals. Regroup here. 15 minus 6 is 9. So we get 9 and a half. And that is our interquartile range. That means the data in between these two numbers, there's 9 and a half points in between these. And then again, interquartile, we have split our data into quarters. So here's a quarter of the data, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. All right, let's try that with another one. Again, you should be writing these in your notebook. We are going to do the same thing with this data. However, I'm noticing I've got 10 here, and 9, 8, 6, 5, 9, 10, 8. So the very first thing we have to do with this data is put it in order from least to greatest. I have 5. I'm going to cross them out as I go so I don't miss anything. 6. I have a couple 8s here. 8 and 8. Make sure you write both of them. 8, 8. How many 9s? 1, 2, 3 9s. 1, 2, 3 9s. And then 2 10s. Okay, so our data is in order. The first thing we need to do is find our median. So I'm going to work my way in. My median is here. There's my median. Now we're going to look at the lower half of our data. I have 5, 6, 8, 8. The middle number is going to be in between 6 and 8. Some of you might already know what that is, right? What's in between 6 and 8? That's going to be 7. We can figure it out mathematically. I can say this is going to be Q1, 6 plus 8 divided by 2. Well, 6 and 8 is 14. Divide that by 2 and we get 7. Do the same thing on this side. If we work our way in, our median is going to be in between the 9 and the 10. Are you already thinking about what that would be? What's in the middle of 9 and 10? 9 and a half, you say? That is correct. So our Q3, we would add 9 plus 10 and divide it in half. That's 19 divided by 2, which is 9 1/2. So we have Q1, Q2 or our median, Q3, 5 is our minimum, 10 is our maximum. So my 5 number summary is going to start with the 5, wavy line 7, wavy line 9, wavy line 9 1/2, and then our maximum is 10. Let's turn that into a box and whisker plot. So we're going to make a number line. This one's going from 5 to 10. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So my minimum is 5, a dot goes on 5. My maximum was 10, a dot goes on 10. I'm going to put a line for each of the other values. So a line on 7, a line on 9, and a line on 9 1/2. Connect those. Here's our box. You have a short little whisker there and a much longer whisker over here. Okay, so here's our box and whisker plot. This whisker represents 25% of our data. It's very spread out. This half of our box represents another 25% of the data. This tiny little piece is another 25%, so that data is kind of smushed. And then here you see our last 25%, our last quarter or quartile is also rather small. Now, what do? Find interquartile range. Remember, our interquartile range is going to be the value that we get when we subtract Q3 and Q1. So Q3 here was 9 1/2. Q1 is 7, and if you need to rewrite this so that you can line up a decimal, the whole number 7 would be 7.0. We would find a range of 2 1/2. So we have a value of 2 1/2 for this half of our data. All right. How are we feeling about this? I'm actually going to skip this one and go to a word problem. We're going to skip that. Okay, this is going to be our last example. A shoe store manager wanted to keep track of the prices of shoes that were purchased at her store. She recorded the prices of the shoes purchased by the next 13 customers. So we have our amount of money here from $5, 18, 25, 28, 34, 35, 39, 42, 42, 50, 58, 60, 80. That's quite a value there. We've got from 5 to 80. This is going to be a very long box and whisker plot. The first thing we need to do, though, is find our values. So I'm going to find the median. I'm going to work my way in with my fingers here. In, and I'm finding that this is our middle number. I'm just going to double check that because there are a lot. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 values to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 values to the right. So I was right. Make sure you double check yourself when you have these long lists because it's easy to make a mistake. Here's your median. Now let's look on the left and find our Q1, our middle on this side. So I've got boom, 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 boom. Okay, so the middle is going to be between 25 and 28. Q1. So we have got to add these up and divide them by 2. I'm going to do that up top here. 25 plus 28 is 53. If I divide that by 2, trust me on this, we're going to get 26 1/2. So in between these numbers is 26 1/2. Now let's do the same thing with the upper range here. Boom, 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 boom. We're going in between 50 and 58. So Q3 is the median of 50 and 58. So again, we're going to add those two, 50 plus 58 is 108 divided by 2 is going to give us 54. Okay? Our minimum, the smallest value is down here. Minimum $5, $5 pair of shoes, that's a good deal. Our maximum, $80. So we've got a huge range. Let's write our 5-number summary. Our 5-number summary is going to start with the 5. Wavy line, Q1 is 26.5. Wavy line, our median was 39. Wavy line, Q3 is 54. Wavy line, the maximum is 80. So when I make my number line here, it's not going to make sense to count by ones. If I have to go from 5 to 80, that's a huge, huge spread. So I'm going to count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and hope I made this long enough, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, ooh, 80, and I'll just throw in an 85 here as well. Okay. Whew, all right, dot on the 5, here we go. Minimum 5, maximum 80. So the ends of our whiskers, we're gonna put lines at all of the other values. So 26.5 is gonna be a little bit past 25. We're just gonna eyeball it here, get it in about the right place. Our median was 39. That's gonna be right before the 40. And then our Q3 was 54, so right before the 55. Create your box and extend your whiskers. Ooh, that's a long whisker. That one's kind of long, but not as long as the other one. So here is our box and whisker plot. Minimum 5, Q1 26.5, median 39, Q3 54, and then a whisker out to our maximum, which was 80. Now this last question is going to make you think. Complete the following statement. 75% of the customers spent between $5 and blank dollars. Remember, each of these is 25% of our data. So here's a quartile, here's a quartile, here's a quartile, and then our last quartile is very spread out. So we are talking about 75%, and it's between $5 and what? Well, here's $5. 75% is going to involve all 3 of these. So I need to go from this quartile, 1, 2, 3. We need to go up to this point right here. Remember, this was our Q3, this line, and that value, if we look up here, or we can even look over here, was 54. So 75% of the customers spent between $5 and then right here, $54 on their shoes. All right, you guys, I know that was a lot of work. Please make sure you go back and re-watch this. Take these notes down very carefully. You're basically just finding median over and over and over again. So you're just finding those middle numbers. If you need me, don't be afraid to shoot an EDSB message and we can work something out. We can do a Zoom, and I'm willing to help you. Talk to you guys soon.